I know we're putting out some more chairs. We're going to start shortly. So I'm Chaplain Adam Siegel. I work here at Beit Teshuvah. For those that are standing, we certainly have some chairs over here. They're going to put out some more. You're welcome to stand, but know that you will be accommodated, definitely. It's both beautiful and heartbreaking to have such a full room. So for those that don't know, Beit Teshuvah is a residential recovery center and a spiritual community. And Ruby was a beloved member of this community and the staff. And she took part in all kinds of programs and experiences and friendships and memories here. And as a spiritual community, we have lots of celebrations. And Ruby was part of lots of celebrations. And we also have lots of these. And no one wants to be here for these. And so we find it, whatever calls us deep within us to be here, is what we can hold on to in terms of remembering Ruby, remembering the memories that we had with her, remembering what made her Ruby. Which, in some ways, there's no great words that are descriptions that can encompass most of us, and especially someone like Ruby. Both in all her complexities, in all her beauty, all her passions, and all her love. It was notable that she passed away on October 9th, because in the Jewish calendar, that was during the week-long festival or occasion of Sukkot. Sukkot's an interesting holiday. It comes right towards the end of the high holidays that some of you may know. And it's a mix of a lot of joy, of a lot of encountering the fragility of life, and also raising questions about the mystery and at times the devastation of life. On the Shabbat, on the Sabbath, during this week-long festival, there's usually a reading of the book of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, which includes the very famous verses that I'll read that many of you will be familiar with for a number of reasons, but they also talk about the complexities of life and give us some guidance both to try to understand ourselves and where we are in this place. So it's the second chapter, but it starts out in this particular verse. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to slay and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to cry and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time for solitude, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time to speak. So we're here, and we have many of the people who surrounded Ruby with love are going to speak. Many family members, many friends from various times in her life, as well as her time here and since she started to be a member of this community. The author of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, was, there's a lot of uncertainty about what his intentions were and what his reasoning and where his conclusions are. It's not a very necessarily uplifting book in the Bible. It leaves us at times with more questions than answers, and in some ways, that's very fitting to where we're at here in this room. And especially when we lose someone who served as a pillar for many in their relationships. And despite the ups and downs of the life that Ruby lived, she was a constant in her relationships with love, with gratitude, and with the possibility of hope. And we don't have her to do that, but we have each other. And so as we hear the stories, as we see the pictures, as we hear some of her favorite music, maybe we'll laugh a little bit. We'll probably cry a little bit. There'll be time for silence, and there'll be time for speaking. Cantor Nate's up here with me. He's the cantor of Beit Teshuvah. We're going to move from a song. Before we get to speakers, we're going to move to a song. The song is from the verses of Psalm 23. In Hebrew, it's Adonai Roi. In English, the Lord is my shepherd.
So I'll share the words of King David. I'll read the English first, and then I will sing the Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. God leads me in the path of righteousness for God's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. God's rod and staff, they comfort me. God prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies and anoints my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of God forever. Adonai roi lo echzar bihino deshe yarbitzeni alame menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglet tzedek yancheni b'maglet tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech beged salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni taruch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai dishanta veshemen roshi gozi rivaya achtov chesed yedefuni koime chayai ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
So from Psalm 23, we said, Adonai, or the Lord, is my shepherd. Think of a shepherd, one who guides, who supports, and at times who comforts, allowing for those that are following them, to be able to move forward. I'm going to call up Ruby's mom, Cheryl, and we all are here to help guide, support, and help her move forward.
I don't know where to start. This is so hard for me in so many ways, but the one thing Ruby and I differed is being the center of everybody's attention is not me at all. I know, first of all, thank you all for being here and being here for Ruby. I just want you, I know everybody's from different phases of her life, and I just want to, I'm not going to read all these pages, but it's just, I mean, Ruby, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Ruby. Ruby was named after Ruby Bridges. I read that book when I was a young girl, and that Ruby Bridges was such, you know, she was so brave that I knew Ruby was going to be that girl. At 2 years old, the pediatrician told me that I needed to get her in school quickly because someone else needed to talk to her besides me. At 4 in LA, that's Ruby's sister, by the way. At 4 in LA, they test you, and they said that she should be in private school. She would be bored in public. There, she ended the Willows years, and I met my best friend, Kathy Paul, there, but the community there was amazing, and I see so many people still from the Willows here. There, she started theater. She got introduced to theater. When she was in 6th grade, she decided she wanted to be academically challenged more, which I think she would say was probably a mistake. She then attended Windward, where, again, and Jamie, Rachel, Danny, her friends, and so many more are here and have been her lifelong friends. And it's just amazing. And there again, the love of theater happened. You know, there's one story that I remember asking Ruby, like, why doesn't she ever go out for the leads in plays? And she said, why would I when I can play a character that's so much more interesting? So, especially the people that knew her in that way. When she was 17, a junior, I made her attend a program in Chicago at Northwestern called Cherubs. I literally had to drag her there. And there, Joe, Grace, Allie, and so many more she met there. And her cherub years were incredible. She learned writing, she learned the friendships there, but one of the things that happened while she was there was Ivy. She fell in love. And I learned what the word fluid meant. And Ivy, I don't even know where you are right now. She loved you. You know she loved you. I think when I met you, and it was you and her sitting there at lunch, and I was like, oh, this is not a friend. Yeah, it took you a while, but, you know. My timelines were a little bit weird after that. So she then applied to the Tisch program, and I really wanted her to go to Northwestern, but she insisted to go to Tisch. She wanted to be in New York again. She got into the Tisch program. I think they take under 300 students a year. And there's so many of you here. There's just so many of you here that have lived with me. Sam, Niall, Goldie. There's just so many of you here. The Tisch program, of course, every quirky kid in the world went to Tisch, and she met so many of you and loved you all so much. I would get calls basically every day. I mean, the one thing Kathy Paul said is that every day you hear from Ruby, and we were in contact almost every day. Ruby was my everything. Just know that, everybody. She was my everything. And I'm missing so many stories. She got kicked out of the dorm because her and Ivy had a fist fight, which Niall, I think you witnessed it. She got kicked out of the dorm. She moved into my apartment where she had my nephew graffiti a 200-year-old wall. She kept the water on one day and flooded my apartment and the apartment below. She started having the Tisch rehearsals in the laundry room and on the roof of the building. And this was a co-op building. And finally, there was like a fire alarm that went off, and these two European men were outside smoking cigarettes, and people there were only 20 apartments. And they said, "Who are you?" And they were like, "We're Airbnb 2D. Now we know there's no Airbnb in New York. Ruby's bank account had thousands in it. The co-op board finally called me and said, either you go or she goes. Ruby did have her demons, as we know. After the first year of college, she was struggling mentally. We saw that, and I saw what was happening after Ivy basically walloping you and doing a couple other things, where I remember that year Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber all went to rehab, and I sat there and I said, if it's good enough for them, I'm going to find out where they went. But all our therapists kept saying she needs DBT therapy, and I still don't understand it, to be honest, but it's some kind of, for the young and the restless, some behavioral therapy. And each of the places I called, they had a touch of DBT. And then I found out the biggest DBT center is in Venice, right here. The first part of the center only had 8 beds, so to get in was a bit challenging. I called the resident guy maybe 16 times a day, where I think they moved a bed into one of the rooms just so I wouldn't call anymore. She spent the summer there, the summer that I was away, and she really learned DBT. She learned the tools. She fell in love with DBT. And there, She continued college. She went back to college. I know there's 1,000 more stories, which I'm going to throw out to you guys after. She graduated the Tisch program, and right away she got a job at the Atlantic Theater. She was the youngest alumni to star in a play in the Atlantic Theater. New York Times didn't like the play, but Ruby got, but they gave Ruby they loved Ruby. And at that point I said, if you want this can actually happen. Never pushed her into everything. I'm not a tiger mom. I'm exactly the opposite of a tiger mom. At that point, it gets a little blurry to me, but I know she started struggling again. And she was in Florida, and she had an episode there where we put her back into rehab in Florida. It's a long story. Happy to tell you at a different time. And there she met Scout. I don't know where Scout is, but Scout. Scout and her, the word fluid again, Not only were they in rehab together, I got a call one day from the rehab that they ran away. It was, and I said at 2, and if at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if you don't find them, call the police. But they did return. Scout she's continued to be in Ruby's life as well as Ivy. She then, when she turned 18, because I was traveling quite a bit, I decided that she should become a PA, which is a production assistant. She thrives being a PA. She was an incredible PA that, if you knew New York, the PAs that do crowd control are usually big 6 feet men. Ruby decided that that's what she wanted to do. So she was the crowd control, and her name went from Ruby to Bulldog. And it was on every call sheet. And then she met Tessa. Tessa, you entered our lives. And you two, Tessa is like, everybody asked me, how do I become a PA? And it's like, you got to meet the mafia girl, the guy. Tessa was the mafia girl in New York. Tessa continued to hire her as a PA on so many movies. And thank you for that. Really, she was an incredible PA. At this point, she was struggling. Her father, as some of you know, just kind of left, like no notice, just left. And it really added to her mental illness, I should say, but the abandonment of her father is something that I couldn't fix. That was about 7 years ago, and I, with Zoe, became their everything. I was their everything, and she was my everything. She returned to Brooklyn. She lived in an apartment, and she wasn't going back to my apartment. She lived in Brooklyn with 4 roommates, and then COVID happened, where I said, you need to come home. And it's still a blur what went on, but of course, the only thing that was open at that time was weed stores, and of course, my nephew, Serena, they worked in the weed store, which is probably exactly what she didn't need, is to work in a weed store. But she was one of the few people working at that time. Again, a couple years later, lots of weed, father abandoning her, she started to suffer again. And I think I was in Atlanta. Danny, I think and her friends basically had an intervention with her. They were scared that she was going to hurt herself. And her friends took over, and she entered here. And the first few texts were like, yeah, I don't belong here. I'm not an addict. This place sucks. The therapists suck. But we all made a plan that she couldn't come back home. Danny, you were definitely one of the people. And she had to stay. And 3 months into it, it was about 3 months where she said, I just love my spiritual advisor. Only in LA they have a spiritual advisor. And she actually ended up spending a year here, upstairs as a resident. But she was, if you know Ruby, she kind of took over. She was working the desk, she was doing intakes, but she was a resident here. And the community that she built here is amazing. I mean, these are from everywhere. Max, I don't know where you are, but, you know, Max was in here. Well, Max ordered food from New York, and that was a friendship that lasts forever because of that food. When she left here, she decided that she was going to go for her master's in therapy, what's it called, in psychology. And she went to school, and she finished school a few weeks ago. I opened her degree 2 days ago. And what's crazy is the first DBT center that she went to is where she got her job. And she was so excited about starting that job. About 2 years ago, she met Gabe. And Gabe, I don't know where you are either. She loved you. She loved you like every bit of her life. She loved you. And Gabe's family, God, you were the kindest man. I think, you know, it gives me a little bit of peace that she's so young, but she experienced adult love in a very different manner. You're a very kind man. And everybody, you know, about 3 months ago, Ruby was starting to suffer again. And I'm not going to say you got frustrated with her, but they needed a break. And they were on their break. I'm going to call it they were on their break. And Ruby took it very hard because not only were you her boyfriend, you were her best friend. And I was very indecisive whether to even invite you here because, you know, she was crying so hard. But the week before this all happened, she said she dreamt of you every night. She loved you. She loved your family. And I look back on those pictures, I've never seen her so happy. Last Thursday night, I got the call from LAPD. And they first said, I guess when they see somebody young dead, they just say, I was in New York, that your daughter has overdosed. You know, my body went into shock, but I looked back on her texts, and everything was, she was getting ready to start her new job. She just graduated. She was going to buy a new car. She was coming, you know, we're going to the spa on Sunday. I mean, we had it, and I knew that she didn't. And finally, when we actually, Goldie, you saw the report first. The coroner report comes out before they even contacted us. It said what she died of. It's pulmonary thrombosis. The coroner said in the 32 years that he's done this, he's never seen a young person die, that he had to call 2 other coroners in to say, like, how is this true? This week, I saw her body. I had to make the decision whether to cremate her or bury her. I had to pick out an urn. I'm struggling. I'm struggling so much. She was 30, but I really believe at 30, this is where you start to bloom as a person, and she'll always be 30, you know, and my life hasn't been easy, you know. Zoe had a difficult birth, and you know, Courtney leaving, my both parents died 3 years ago in the same year. It's been hard, you know. But I can't wrap my head around this. I'm struggling. I'm struggling, and I just want to say, don't forget her, guys. I want to see you all grow, and I'm just so sad. Thank you.
So in talking to Cheryl and Mark this week, there was comments of how many people that have given an outpouring of love to them, and also comments of knowing how many people pass through your house, and how many people here pass through your house over the years, because you created a home that allowed for that. Some that you didn't know were there at times, but that Ruby invited in, and you were there for them, and now they're here for you. They're also here for Ruby's sister Zoe, who's going to come up with some friends and share some words.
Okay, so first, before I start the speech, I want to talk to you a little bit about Ruby. Ruby was my angel. She loved me. She loved all of you. She was a really good sister to everybody. She really, really, really enjoyed me. She really helped me take care of me when I was sick. I loved her spirit. And she really, really loved all of you. Okay, and then she loved everybody. She loved you and Tyler. She really did. Okay, and so that I'm going to read you a speech. Okay. Good afternoon. As you probably already know, my name is Zoe, and I am Ruby's sister. Ruby was a great sister. We used to do many fun things together. She would take me for mani-pedis and scooter rides. I loved when she would make pasta for me and would take me to get frozen yogurt. We loved listening to music together, going to concerts, and singing together. We loved going to Dodger games and watching movies. One of my favorite memories was the trip we took to the beaches near San Diego with my mom. Ruby would take care of me while I was sick, and she would always have my back. She was smart and funny, and she used to call me funny names. I loved to laugh with her. I would really miss her so, but she will always live in my heart. And Ruby will always love you.
So as we heard, Ruby had lots of best friends. She was everyone's sister. Rachel, Jamie, and Danny are going to come up and share a little bit about their sister, Ruby.
Okay, I'm a little shaky, so I apologize in advance. I'm sure Ruby would want me to tell you that I am on the verge of a panic attack. I know she would want me to do it. She knows, she can feel it. Thank you all for being here. It is incredible to look out into the sea of people and know how much love there is for Ruby. Not that we didn't know that already. As everyone in this room knows, to know Ruby was to love her, to laugh with her, to be laughed at by her, and to be just a little bit scared of her. As all epic best friendships begin, ours started off as bully and bullied, and I think you guys can guess who was who. But as we really got to know each other, our relationship matured into cheater and provider of answers. And again, I hope you all can deduce who is who. But as our conversation shifted from schoolwork, our relationship deepened, and we realized we had more in common than we thought. We connected on being a theater kid, the newest episodes of Glee, the complex intricacies of our Windward class, and having to be strong for others at an early age. From then on, Ruby saw me. She saw people so deeply, maybe because she didn't always feel seen herself. Not only did she take the time to listen, but she took me in. She opened up her family to me and made me a third daughter. And that is an honor I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Ruby and I talked every day, usually every hour, in good times, in bad times, in all of the seemingly mundane moments in between. And what you must realize is that best friends are, of course, there for the big moments. The graduations, the new jobs, the big moves, the breakups, the World Series wins, hopefully going back to back. But the quiet, indescribable, glorious parts of having a best friend is having them around for the little things. The weeknight dinners you cook together, sending each other the Wordle every day, sitting on the couch for hours next to each other in total silence, feeling comfort in each other's presence, texting each other the same thing at the same time about something so irrelevant. And that's what we would call a CFL. A silly term we coined in high school signifying our bond that has persisted in our communication over the years. It feels impossible to sum up 15 years of best friendship, and at times it feels like I don't know where I end and you begin. How lucky I am to be witness to your greatness, to your strength, your resilience, your brilliance, your silliness, and your air-fried salmon. Always an HTS, meaning hit the spot. She loves her acronyms. Rubes, you are my sister, my person. I take comfort and extreme pride in knowing I'm yours, knowing we conquer the world side by side. I love you so much, and will miss you every day from now until forever. Don't worry, I got Cheryl, I got Zoe, I got Lala, wearing the title of third daughter proudly and loudly, just as you do in everything. And by the way, I got Wordle in 5 today.
I'm so proud of you. We're here at Beit Teshuvah, the space and place where you changed your life. This is where you did the work, even when you hated it, complained about it, bitched about it, and you did that often. You still did it anyway. On day 1, you texted me that you were walking home, to which I said, I will fucking kill you. No matter how much you struggled at times, you stuck it out. You grew and blossomed, a word I know you'd hate. And we are so incredibly proud of you. Last year, on your 3-year sober birthday, my family and I came to see you right here on this bima. It was one of the most inspiring things to witness. I was in awe of you. You touched every person there that night with your words and your chutzpah. You wore your emotions on your sleeve, which gave you the unique ability to make everyone feel special and that they matter in a way that no one else can. People who don't know you feel so close to you because of your authenticity, openness, and vulnerability. I wish you could see this. All of us here, you wouldn't even believe it. You'd be like, really? All of this for me? And we'd turn to you and say, duh, of course, Rubes. You never saw in yourself how much everyone sees in you. I hope you see it now. You understood me more than I understood myself at times. You helped me connect deeper with my sister, shout out Weens. Your ability to understand Karina deeply, to support her as she figured out her sexuality, helped Karina gain confidence, and helped me grow in my relationship with her. I will always be grateful for that. Karina will always be grateful for that. We will always remember how you were there for us, and we will always miss you. And yes, you could be an absolute little shit. You're too smart for your own good, too quick-witted for any windward teacher to handle. Shout out. Your humor is unparalleled. When you laughed, I laughed, especially at myself. You would point out something ridiculous that I did, which was often, and then get me to look at myself in a more introspective way. Still working on it. If I was sad with you, your smile had the power to make me forget what I was sad about in the first place. I'll miss your laughter most of all. And I know that every time I do something absurd from here on out, which will be multiple times every single day, you'll be laughing at me, and I'll think of you and smile. I love you, Rubes.
I miss you, my friend. I've been racking my brain trying to remember how we met. But the thing is, when you've been in someone's life for as long as we have, it's impossible to boil down 17 years into one single memory. What I can tell you is that growing up, you were my home away from home. So much so that whenever I'd come over, you wouldn't even bother getting up and opening the front door for me. I'd let myself in, go upstairs to where you'd inevitably be laying in bed, and without missing a beat, crawl right in next to you. Those were the days. So many sleepovers fueled by SVU, hair appointments by Cheryl, home-cooked shells by Lala, froyo trips with Zoe and Buddy, and carpools powered by none other than Rachel, who, looking back, I'm only really close to because you introduced us all those years ago. So many of us in this room today are connected because of you. I thought this was a joke, but I guess it's true that Ruby is actually named after Ruby Bridges. I thought that was like a really uninspired thing that she always would say because I'm black and her best friend. But I guess it's fitting because Ruby was a bridge. Ruby is a bridge. I'm meeting and re-meeting all of the friends you name-dropped over the years, the supporting characters in your colorful stories. I love seeing you through their eyes. It's no surprise you were just as much of a leading lady in their lives as you were in mine. What is a surprise, though, is how everyone somehow knew the same Ruby that I do. Singular, original, one of one. This last week, I've been reminded by just how iconic you are, how admired, how loved, how cherished. You'd probably call bullshit, but I've always known the deep impact that you have on everyone you meet. You have the biggest heart, and with it, you've taught me so much. To love fast, hard, deeply, and frequently. You'd probably get a kick out of all of your exes being here today. You taught me to feel my feelings. I'm trying to be brave and take creative risk, and to cry often, not just at the bad times, but at the good times, and especially at the, I just watched a video of a bird befriending a dog, and now I'm uncontrollably sobbing times. Ruby used to constantly thank us for being her friends, as if we weren't all the lucky ones for having her in our lives, as if she didn't bring us as much light, joy, chaos, happiness, and humor. But Ruby, I need you to know that being your friend is one of the greatest joys I have ever known. I miss you, my friend. I love you, and I will carry you with me forever.
Veronica and Tyler, Ruby's aunt and cousin, will be joining.
I never thought I'd experience anything like this, and I never thought I would. Ruby was more than just a cousin. She was my sister, my sibling, my best friend. Me and Ruby grew up 6 months apart in age, and with no other siblings, Ruby was truly the sister I never had. We grew up from childhood into adulthood together, from Christmases in Florida, Thanksgiving in California, visiting her in college in New York. And when I moved to California, our relationship only deepened. I only lived 5 minutes away from her, and we were even coworkers at a dispensary throughout COVID. We had so many great memories throughout these 30 years, and I never thought it could end like this. The last memory I share with Ruby was just last Tuesday. I was stopping by the house on my lunch break, and Ruby asked me to help her move a couch down the stairs. We carried it about 4 stairs before we decided to just throw it down the stairs instead. We were dying and laughing, and it was a great last memory. Even if it was just a short visit, we always said, "I love you," whenever we would say goodbye. I'm glad we were still able to share this last laugh together, and I could tell her I love you one last time. I will always hold the memories I have with Ruby in my heart and cherish them forever. I love you, Ruby.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today with heavy, sorrowful hearts to memorialize our dear, sweet Ruby. This tragedy has rocked us all to the core and make us ache for that was to come and will never be realized. Ruby was a vibrant, resilient, and deeply feeling young woman. She had a great sense of humor and a keen, vivid imagination. She found joy in the smallest moments. I remember she would dress up in her grandmother's clothes in Florida and post them in social media and make comments. She was so animated and she's so hilarious. Ruby adored Filipino cooking, especially pancit and lumpia. That happens to be lo mein and egg rolls. She wanted me to ship the egg rolls from Florida to California. Whenever I was here, she wanted me to cook, and she would invite friends, and before you know it, I'm supposed to be on vacation. I was cooking for about 15, 20 people. Together, she would ask me to make all her favorite dishes. Every bite seemed to light up her face. Her laughter as she commented on the bold flavors. Food was one of her passions. Ruby was more than a beloved niece. She was a sister to my son, Tyler, and a daughter I never had. From the time they were babies, Ruby and Tyler spent their childhood celebrating birthdays, holidays, and vacations together. They shared a deep bond of respect, understanding, honesty, humor, love. They were confidants and best friends. Ruby loved her dear sister, Zoe. Zoe taught Ruby the importance of empathy, patience, and kindness. They had a beautiful relationship, a true example of how love and support creates a world of joy and understanding. Cheryl, your suffering is unthinkable. Relationships between mothers and daughters are deep, complicated, and not always easy. But Ruby knew she could always count on your love, understanding. Your love for one another was genuine and true. In our grief, it is unimaginable that we could continue forward without our Ruby in our lives. But forward we must, embedding our memories of Ruby as we make new memories and celebrate life's gifts and think about how she would have added something uniquely Ruby. If we learn something from Ruby's death, perhaps tomorrow is not promised. Focus on the present and appreciate those around us is essential. Let us honor Ruby for being kind to one another and by having short memories for grievances and longer arms to hold those near who are with us now. Godspeed, Ruby. You love deeply and we deeply love you. We will miss you terribly and we love you forever, Ruby.
Thank you, Veronica and Tyler. So we have some more friends, Grace and Joe. I see a Dodger hat. This is a friendly audience.
No, I apologize. It's a bit rude for me to keep my hat on, but I can't seem to take it off. The Dodgers were something Ruby and I, it just kept us in constant contact with each other. We just texted about the Dodgers all the time, and then even Joe got into it. My Joe. So that was, the night Ruby died, we were talking about how the Yankees, they were out of the World Series, of the postseason. So that was the last text I got from Ruby. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for having me speak, Cheryl, and I love you. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that I admire about Ruby and want to take forward with me in my own life. I have a friend whose nephew just received a mood disorder diagnosis, and his doctors often return to this word, insight, to track his progress, essentially his level of understanding what's going on with him. And this word insight has really stuck with me. I think it's a really powerful concept, powerful word. It's essentially just this concept of understanding, and but a profound understanding. And as I've thought about Ruby nonstop over the past week, I'm just totally in awe of how insightful she was. She was an incredibly self-aware person. Right out of college, we made a podcast together about her borderline diagnosis, and I just listened to it yesterday. And of course, she was, as always, genuine and vulnerable and hilarious, but this clear sense of insight that she had about herself was incredible to hear. She had known her entire life that mentally there was something going on besides depression, and she felt very relieved and validated to receive this diagnosis of borderline when she was 18. And in her words on our podcast, she said, "I understood myself in that moment better than I had in the last 18 years." And that's such a gift. I think we all strive for that kind of insight into ourselves, and I really believe that's the main exercise of being alive. And many people either never get there or it takes them a really long time. So that's an accomplishment and something I really admire and something I want to take from her. And one other thing that's kind of been a theme tonight is Ruby was not somebody who isolated or withdrew. which is saying a lot for somebody who dealt with emotions that are as overwhelming as the ones that she was dealing with. She always reached out. She always sought connection. She knew she needed that for her mental well-being. And frankly, I think we all feel that way too. It just can take effort sometimes if we're not hardwired that way. But I think it's critical. We all received all the texts all the time. But that's incredible. And that's why so many people are here today, because they felt that closeness with her. So that's something I want to take from her, just to always remind myself that connection is life-affirming and essential.
Hi, everyone. As I'm sure we all know, Ruby had a pretty decent-sized tattoo collection. But my personal favorite was one of her simplest. It was a fraction, reading 1 out of 1,000. A reference to Thornton Wilder's Our Town, which Ruby performed as her second-year through-line project at Atlantic as Emily Webb. Towards the end of the second act, the stage manager is explaining the conventional course of a life: the cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the grandchildren. And he pauses to say, "Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting." Ruby, I think we can all agree, without a shadow of doubt, that your life was extraordinarily interesting. From appearing on TMZ after the animal rescue stole back your dog Iggy, gifted to you by Ellen DeGeneres, to your star turn as the murderous stepdaughter in Legally Blonde the musical at Windward, to the Seagull for your third-year play at Atlantic, to then being acting in a new play on the main stage at Atlantic. You were exceptional, working as a PA and instantly becoming Bill Murray's favorite to the point where he refused to engage with any other PA on set, recording a self-tape, writing a feature-length film or a TV pilot, leading group therapy during your internship at the LGBT Center. You shined in everything you did, everywhere you went. I feel blessed to have witnessed it all. A talented and intelligent actress, a brilliant writer, the funniest person in the room, always the most protective sister and daughter, the most loyal friend, a burgeoning therapist. You loved fiercely, never shied away from big emotions or vulnerability. You taught me so much about being a friend, being an artist, and being a human. Every day for the rest of my life, I'll thank my lucky stars that we connected in those Northwestern dorm rooms, 2 queer kids finding themselves in each other. Who will I commiserate with now? Who will be my writing partner, my walking buddy? Who will I do Saturday yoga and taco dates with? Who will I watch the Dodgers win the World Series with? We had big plans, or maybe rather, you had big plans and I was lucky enough to be along for the ride. For the past 13 years, you've been a constant in my life, and you will continue to be. Thank you, Ruby, for your razor-sharp wit, your brilliance, your friendship. I don't know how I'll ever repay you, but I'll work every day to try. I love you forever.
We really do get a sense that we were all just along for the ride. So we're gonna take a moment with some words and move to some pictures and some music and watch the ride.
Operator, or could you help me place this call? See, the number on the matchbook is old and faded. She's living in LA with my best old ex-friend Greg. Gosh, she said she knew well and sometimes hated. Isn't that the way they say it goes? Well, let's forget all that and give me the number if you can find it, so I can call just to tell them I'm fine and to show I've overcome the blow. I've learned to take it well. I only wish my words could just convince myself that it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels. That it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels. No one there, no, 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 no. That's not the way it feels. Thank you, operator. Oh, let's forget about this call. There's no one there I really wanted to talk to. Thank you for your time. So much more than kind. And give me the number if you can find it, so I can call just to tell them I'm fine and to show. Isn't that the way they say it goes? Well, let's forget all that and give me the number if you can find it, so I can call just to tell them I'm fine and to show I've overcome the blow. Take it well. I only wish my words could just convince myself that it just wasn't real, but that's not the way it feels.
Ruby's cousin Tyler and friend Jesse Solomon helped put that together. We have Cheryl's partner, Mark, who's been a presence in Ruby's life for many years. We'll come share a couple words.
Talk about a different perspective. Wow. Well, hopefully I'll be somewhat coherent. And it's too bad that crying for 10 days doesn't make it impossible to cry for an 11th. Okay, so this sanctuary is a place where Ruby rebounded and thrived. There's some comfort in knowing how powerful her spirit flourishes today. As a quick preamble, if needed, I am Mark, Cheryl's partner over the last 9 years, and my relationship with Ruby does not need exploring in depth here today. But the short of it is, we bumped heads quite a bit. It was somewhat of a contradictory relationship, vacillating from her telling me she did not want my opinion on basically anything, to extensive texts and phone calls where she sought out my support. Most texts ended with either, that's complete bullshit, and you don't know what you're talking about. Such is the nature of life. So last week, when I got the kind of call that I pray most of you are all, excuse me, all of you should be spared. And meant to kind of deal with all the bizarre mechanics involved in when bodies stop working. So I was, more than anything else, I was just instantly, mostly we're very removed from the realities of birth and death, which is unfortunate, but suddenly when you're just jettisoned into this vortex, all that I kept thinking of was, nothing is as it appears to be. That's sort of like been my mantra for a week or so. It's just, we are too quick to judge, to evaluate moment to moment as we go about our days. The fabric of reality that we rely on for meaning and purpose, we may think it's foolproof, seamless, and even concrete. But it is all an illusion, full of holes and tears. Any certitude of knowing what today or tomorrow will bring is, as the Hindus would say, Maya. That is what haunts me now. If there is a gift, and there is from Ruby, and I believe there is, it is that she is now pointing at each and one of us to recognize the fragility and frailty of life and to embrace each other with every breath. That is why I'll cut this out. That is why we gather here today. Ruby's passing is nothing short of devastation. So many thoughts, impressions, regrets, tears, and eternal rantings. The torture of why when there is no why. Oh, there's still a page there, Mark. What are you doing? How in a matter of moments, got to blame someone who messed up the teleprompter. Little political joke there. It's okay. They'll just freaking deport me any second now. Ruby, look out after my ass. How in a matter of moments can Ruby be gone from our everyday world? So young, on the verge of new chapters of her life. Less than 2 weeks ago, the incantation of Kol Nidre questioned the chronology and destiny of a year to come. A week later, we see that her book of life was going to be torn apart and shredded before us. This is tragedy. This is a wound so profound as to be beyond description. My name for Ruby has always been, I guess will continue to be, the Scowler. It's kind of, would you see, actually, Tyler did a great job in finding only semi-scowling images. Now I wonder existentially that what she was pissed off about all this time was that she knew on some level that she was going to be shortchanged in this cruel fashion. The outpouring of love and tears for loss of Ruby was immediate. I've always known Ruby has a very dear close friends. You've heard from and will continue to hear from many of them today. The sheer number of remarkable young women and men that have been part of her posse/mafia, some as early as her grade schools at Willow, is a wonder to behold, truly. Ruby, I pray that you understood how much you are loved to this day and beyond. On behalf of Cheryl and Zoe, and I want to just thank Betty Java and all who are present now in holding a sacred space of love and respect for our dear Ruby. Thank you.
So we've heard from a number of LA friends, but we know that there was a New York side to Ruby. So we have some New York friends that are going to come share. Niall, Sam, and Goldie.
Ooh. I might like burp in the middle of this. I don't know. It's kind of, I'm Jewish, so I think that's how I grieve. I'm Goldie. Hi. I met Ruby, I think, 12 years ago. She scared me, and she surprised me all the time. I felt like I understood her innately, though I didn't always relate. Her world seemed inherently different than mine. Bold, where maybe mine was italicized, or red, where mine was blue. Sometimes I thought I wanted to be her. Ruby knew how loud and deep and unreliable the world was, and I thought I did too. We would talk about darkness like it was a friend we were making fun of, talking about it behind its back. She was a breath of fresh air to me. Light and heavy at the same time. Just so supremely human, and I needed her. I think she needed me too. I can't see, so hold on. We'd give each other the tasks we thought the other needed. I'd drive. I'd find the neighborhoods to stay in, remind her that I didn't judge her, deal with the storage units, braid her hair, tell her everything was okay. She'd slow me down, make me laugh, watch me and point out patterns, find a dinner spot, take me on a tour, tell me I was strong. She was a counterpoint in my life. She taught me directly and indirectly who I was and who I wanted to be. I became more of myself because of Ruby. And she was always herself. She was always working and relentlessly growing, but she was always Ruby. I envied that, the constant natural state of her, as if she had a destiny for this body and this soul and this life. Ruby was charismatic in a way I've never seen before. She could charm anyone she met with a smirk and a nod. Over the years, I hardened where she softened, and she became firm where I loosened. She opened up to the world more, wanting to go to it instead of asking it to come to her. She was making plans. And she was learning to trust herself. A couple weeks ago, we went on a trip. We met a sweet older man in a line for a shuttle in Zion National Park. And I started talking to him, asking where he was from, and like the hikes he'd done, and then inevitably his relationship to God and like this earthly realm. But when we got on the bus, he sat next to Ruby, patiently trying to follow her cues, wanting to show her pictures of the sunset from the night before, hoping to hear from her. By the time we got off, he was beaming. They both said, "God bless you." Ruby was a deep and vast pool. She was endless and true. She was undeniable. She told me once that someone, fuck it, her dad said to her, it would be easier if you didn't feel your feelings. When we talked about it again recently, she said, "I think the most important thing in my life is to feel my feelings." And I think that's what made her so powerful. It drew us all in. I tried to show her how much power she wielded in her will, her wit, her curiosity, her talent, her charm. I wanted her to know how singular she was and that everyone knew it. I'm heartbroken and I'm furious. And if I'm being honest, I think she would be too. But I do truly believe, wherever her energy has dissipated to, that she can sense the outpouring of love and gratitude for her back here in our world. I want her to know how proud I am of her. I'm so thankful to have had Ruby Frankel as my best friend. And I'm so thankful for all of you. For me, she's immortal. These chairs are great.
I'm going to do this the way that I think Ruby would have wanted me to do. I'm going to mostly wing it, kind of fly by the seam of my pants. But I have some loose notes. The first thing I'm curious about is who got Ruby? We were wondering it over there. Who got Ruby on a paddle boat in Central Park? Who was it? Which one of you did it? Amazing, of course. That's unbelievable work. I'm really proud of you. Ruby and I occasionally would talk about what we'd want to happen if something happened to us, and unfortunately I can't really remember any of those things, but I think she would be pretty devastated that a fight hasn't broken out yet. And everyone seems to be getting along, so someone come in and incite some violence. It won't be me, but about 5 years ago, I had a brief stint in LA, and when I told Ruby that I was moving here and I was going to drive, the first things out of her mouth were, "I'm coming." And I was like, "Ruby, I think I'm just going to zip it across the country and make like a 4-day thing out of it." And she's like, "I'm coming. And we're gonna make a big thing out of it, and we're gonna rely on other people. We're gonna have fun." And I was like, "Well, Ruby, I think I've got all my worldly possessions coming with me, and I don't think there's gonna be room." And she's like, "Well, that's too bad. I'm coming, and when we get to LA, you're gonna move in with my mom." And I was like, "I don't know," but then it happened, and I moved in with Cheryl, and I think to me that kind of epitomized the type of friend that Ruby was. She saw an opportunity to do something special with someone that she loved, and she forced it to happen. I had no say in the matter. It was just going to happen, and I think it's something, a little theme that's come up is, I think a lot of us wear masks and are different around different people, and Ruby was not that, And I think what made her so special was that she demanded that of her friends in return. And I am so grateful that she demanded that of me. And in return, I got such a unique brand of friendship and something that I know I'm never going to feel again. I felt like she'd kill someone for me, and I think that's probably something that all of us share. And Cheryl, I know you said earlier you were worried that people might forget her, and I can promise you that that's not possible. That's just not going to happen. I am who I am largely because of who Ruby was, and that will live in me forever. And I'll just leave you with one little thing that I've had trouble remembering things over the past couple, 10 days now, and people have been sending me things, and I got a picture from a few of you actually, from I think it must have been our freshman year. And it's a picture of me and Ruby holding hands on the High Line, and I just got a bunch of memories returned. She used to just grab my hand and squeeze it all the time, and she'd just hold it, and I think I'm just very grateful to have met her. Thank you.
It is so very difficult to write these things. The last thing you want to do is make it about yourself in any way, but then you go and you gaze at the person that it is about, and there's just like this hole. And I wanted to write something that didn't highlight too much the pain that Ruby and I often were in together. But I think it's important that I point toward it because it to me exemplifies and points toward the things that what I truly love about Ruby, and I will forever. Our relationship was sort of built atop holes. She approached me in Washington Square Park at NYU and said, "You were in the psych ward in high school. We should be friends." And so we were. We became friends because she just up and pointed in that infuriating and courageous way she had of just looking at something. And in this case, at this kind of void that we'd both spent time staring into. So that day, each of us gained a companion in those spaces, the spaces of chaos and crisis and emptiness. The great joy of Ruby's partnership in those places was partly, of course, her sardonic wit, but the other part was that despite that caustic humor, I think in tandem with it, Ruby fundamentally gave a shit in a way that no one else I know does. And she did it even from within these really hard, difficult spaces. She absolutely ate life up like a snack, like a pack of stolen salami, like she was slurping the last drop of ramen from the bowl, even in those places that felt a little like an abyss. In doing so, she taught me that what seemed to be ragged holes in the meanings of our lives were often not actually quite so empty. She taught me they could be filled, and she filled them. I have never, as an adult, been able to hang out more than I could just hang out with Ruby. Just sitting, maybe having a snack, maybe watching a show. Maybe the show is funny and it gets a really good rolling cackle out of her. And beside you on the couch, she's clutching her pillow and rolling over and punching the arm of the couch just for good measure. In her constant acknowledgement of how absolutely stupid life could be, there was also this constant permission, an implied understanding of most anything you could be thinking or feeling. Nights of laying beside her in bed, recounting gossip to each other as she recounted the same gossip to someone else on her phone at the same time. so that there'd always be more to the story when you asked in a moment. These were easy times, easy in a way that breathing is easy. And when you think about it later, when you're in the midst of a panic attack or an illness, it seems miraculous that it was ever so simple. But Ruby's friendship and companionship and partnership was a constant reminder that in those places of struggle and difficulty too, life doesn't stop. It keeps happening. It keeps mattering. That you can be loved and you can love from within those spaces. That even within the least palatable versions of yourself, someone might let you live with them, might make you adopt a cat with them, might make you forge a New York State driver's license that says you're older than you are so that you can adopt a cat with them. That someone might bring you a cup of miso soup while you cry and then laugh very hard at how much snot you are dribbling into it. Ruby taught me to hold it all together, the wound, the blood, the laughter, the rage, the joy, the love. I have never been more grateful for that lesson than I am right now, staring into this empty space where she should be. None of this is that funny in the way that she would be if she were here, but she taught me that it was okay to be so many things, earnest and confused and furious and scared. She taught me that we could all be those things together, at each other, with each other, and then still, somehow, when it was all said and done, make our dinner reservations together. I love you, Ruby.
I think, as we've seen in your words, many of you are who you are because Ruby was who she was. Next, we're going to be joined by Kathy, Ruby's godmother, and Noah.
Little, adorable Ruby Frankel wiggled her way into my heart when she was 5 years old and proceeded to take up an increasingly larger space ever since. Cheryl and I met as co-room parents for the kindergarten class at Willows. And before the school year even started, Cheryl and I and Ruby and Noah launched close friendships, eventually all becoming much more family than friends. Little Ruby was happy and friendly and smart little sweetheart with a mischievous twinkle in her eye all the time and always made us laugh. It was the life of the party. She sometimes didn't have boundaries or the need for decorum. If you were sitting next to Ruby in a restaurant when she was young, it wouldn't be surprising to look down and see that Ruby had eaten all the best food off of your plate. And we could never have an ice cream sundae party at my house without Ruby spraying most of the whipped cream straight from the bottle into her mouth. Her manners definitely improved over time, but her love of great food had a through line to adulthood. She loved brisket at my house and at my mom's, homemade hot fudge, and we loved our dinners together at Pache and Metro.
It's been surprisingly hard for me to pinpoint childhood memories of Ruby, because Ruby was with me for almost every moment of my childhood. But here are a few that feel particularly Ruby. The very first time I saw her, a 5-year-old with angelic blonde ringlets, immaculately styled, of course, moseying toward me in full cowgirl apparel. Ruby getting her shoe confiscated in kindergarten for untying it too many times. Fainting after spending all of recess riding a tricycle in circles. Making an Ava Perón puppet for our 2nd grade Eminent People project. her uncanny portrayal of a passive-aggressive Jewish mother in the class production of Bye Bye Birdie, which, despite her already apparent theatrical talent, required virtually no acting at all. Ruby trying very hard to set up our Hebrew school teachers romantically. Somehow possessing the power to make Ellen DeGeneres cry about a dog on national television twice. Not lasting the week at the basketball camp Cheryl forced us to attend. Then, perhaps as revenge, persuading our parents to let us spend a month at a vaguely spiritual camp in New York, where we took classes like Getting High Naturally and were known as the California girls with bad attitudes. Though we saw each other less as we grew up, memories of those later times are all the more potent. Like in college when Ruby visited me in Amsterdam for one day and spent the entirety of it trying to bail her friend out of jail for shoplifting a vial of fake blood from a Halloween store. Ruby left the next morning without a trace, except an Instagram story of her non-consensually wearing my roommate's prized Yeezys, and a pile of weed on my desk, which I thought may have been a host gift, but was accompanied by a note that said, "Mail this." That was before she came here, of course. Since Ruby moved back to LA, we'd see each other maybe just once a year, and somehow Ruby had always managed to live 5 lifetimes between each visit, with stories to tell from everyone, and yet also remain exactly the same.
At some point along the way, Cheryl asked me to be Ruby's godmother, which of course I was honored to be. That can be a relationship without a lot of significance to some young people, but Ruby embraced it with enthusiasm and imbued it with such meaning, and of course invented the term God sibling for Noah. That's because, as is so evident here today, one of Ruby's superpowers was connection. Not only was she a smart, interesting, talented, hilarious person with the drollest wit around, she also was so lovable and loving, with an authenticity and vulnerability that drew people to her. Those qualities drew me to her, and I adored her. I was so lucky to be with Ruby at Happy Times, seeing some of her brilliant acting performances in LA and New York, celebrating her birthdays, including her sober birthdays here, one in her all-pink jumpsuit to celebrate Barbie movie, having Passover Seders together at my parents' house in upstate New York, where she would sneak back into the kitchen and eat all the turkey that was supposed to be leftovers. But I also felt privileged to be there during some of her difficult times. Despite having absolutely everything going for her, talent and beauty and brains and innumerable loved ones, Ruby was fragile and struggled at times. I admired her so much because she was also so resilient. I was so proud of how hard she worked to regain her center when she felt lost. Like the incredible work she did here at Beit Shuvah, which made such a difference in her life. No matter how many challenging things sometimes were for her, she always sought and was open to advice. She was so self-aware and smart about what she needed to do. She always tried to be proactive about the steps she needed to take, no matter how difficult it was. I always had faith she would pull herself forward and go on to a rewarding and beautiful future. Cheryl, Zoe, Mark, Lala, just want you to know we will always be here for you, to talk to you, to celebrate Ruby with you.
There's one memory that resurfaced for me this past week that I keep coming back to. A years-long bedtime tradition at sleepovers. One of us would say, night, and the other would say, day, and we'd keep going back and forth like that until we fell asleep.
Ruby, it is both amazing and devastating that the sun is coming up every morning without you physically here. But we will always love you and miss you. We will always smile and be inspired when we think of you, and we'll hold you in our hearts forever.
Thank you, Kathy and Noah. We have Tessa and Allie.
Sorry, we're planning in the moment. I'm Tessa, the aforementioned PA mob boss, which I don't think anyone that we worked with would necessarily agree with, but I'm going to take that with me. My sister Abby, who is also here and was also part of the PA mafia, likes to remind me that I was kind of Ruby's boss at one time, which you'll know was a treat. And while literally Ruby would hate any of us for referring to her as a PA at her own service, that is something special that I can speak to. The day I met Ruby in 2019 on the set of the critically acclaimed movie Hustlers, we pointed at each other at the same time and said, "I know who you are." We were two curly-haired, deadpan, apparently basketball-playing, I didn't know that, girls from West LA, 1 year apart, both in the drama department at NYU, and that the universe wasn't ready for us to collide until we were on set in Queens, working with J-Lo at a strip club in the middle of the night. The day I met her, she was wearing her iconic white overalls, which I hope you all know, and that was a complete green flag that I had found a soulmate. At work, her reputation preceded her. She was the funny PA, the cool PA, the smart PA. Her humor and relatability was her absolute superpower. She was the PA you called when, I was going to keep this as a secret of anonymity, but when an award-winning actor was in their trailer and so grumpy and grouchy that only her dry charm and trusting spirit could cut through their misery and make them do their job. It was Bill Murray. She would talk to the crew member on set that everyone disliked the most, and after 10 minutes, she would have them telling her their entire life story, including the insecurities that ultimately would humanize why they were so difficult to work with. She used to take pictures of me talking to this makeup artist who I had a very fraught relationship with, the scowls on my face, and text me the pictures and say, "You got this." She could come in for the last 2 days of a job and by the end get a wrap gift because her energy was so infectious that people thought she had been on the movie the whole time. She could enrapture writers and directors by telling them about her aspirations to be a creator herself, something we had in common, and they genuinely wanted to keep in touch because her ideas were so good. She and I were always dreaming up projects that we would one day make and show to the people who used to see us as the girls who would walk them to set or get coffee. Once we were on a show and there was a scene with 3 singing girls in the back of a car, and we had joked with my sister and Ruby that it should have been the 3 of us, and when the scene was shot, the creator said, "Why didn't you tell me that sooner? It would have been." Some of these creators and directors and writers even came by the house this week to express their love and sympathies to Cheryl, which I'm telling you is not normal. This week, I've also spoken to dozens and dozens of former crew members who remember the intricate details of their time working together, even if they only knew her for 1 day 6 years ago. When you work on a set with someone, they can become your family. In my case, Ruby was almost my literal family because she spent a few months with me and my younger sister, Abby, working and getting closer. We also got close during the pandemic when we both ended up living at our parents' house, spending many afternoons playing in Cheryl's yard with my COVID puppy, Jelly. I watched Ruby bravely overcome struggles she faced over the years. And when I moved back to LA in 2023 with a handful of my own struggles, she was my guiding light for recovery and healing. She brought me to spaces I never would have been comfortable going in on my own. And she was honest with me about things I couldn't see for myself that I needed to do to get better. She was my hard proof that if you keep working at life, you can grow in all the ways you want to, even though sometimes I had to remind her you couldn't do it all at once. Over the past few months, Ruby and I have been talking every day, every hour, every minute, as so many of you have heard other people say, which is crazy. How could she talk? How does she have all the time? We had the type of bond where you could text each other anything, the most absurd thing, and the other was going to answer without judgment or concern, except when judgment and concern were absolutely required. No matter what serious thing we had going on, she also had time to talk about a crush or recent celebrity gossip or drama between all the friends here that I didn't know at the time, or mine, who are also here. I know all too well there was so much that Ruby wanted to accomplish and she didn't get a chance to, and I am promising myself that I'm going to make her proud by doing as many of those things as I can for her. I can't believe she's not here with us with all her favorite people, doing her favorite thing in the world, talking about herself. And we used to say whenever on set we needed to have a moment to talk about something serious, we would say conference room, and we would go find an empty room, and this is her final conference room. She would be so happy to know how warm and generous her friends have been to me in this terribly, terribly scary time. How many people are crying for her and posting for her and trying to make sure there is sushi and salt and straw to dry our tears. I love you forever, Ruby. I'm so endlessly proud of you and the incredible person you continue to be. I would do anything to just give you one more casual ring or ask you how you're doing and have you say, well, I'm fabulous.
Okay. Oh, no. I will, my name's Allie. Okay, off to an amazing start. I will go the rest of my life talking about the type of friend that Ruby was. I was lucky enough to meet her at 17, and she set the bar of what a friend should be from there on out. How seen she made people feel, how a girl with a scorpion and snake tattoos had a heart bigger than she knew what to do with. She was simultaneously the most cynical and optimistic person I knew. The last thing she texted me was, I love you so much, you are so valued. Thank God, because the thing she texted me before was, never forget, which was, of course, in reference to 9/11. I truly believe there was no situation too dark for Ruby to make a joke out of. I really am shocked she's gone this far into her own funeral without talking. When Ruby was 24, she visited her grandmother in Florida and ended up in a treatment center. And I remember getting a call from an unknown Floridian number, and I picked up, and without missing a beat, Ruby goes, believe me when I tell you I'm the most popular person here. Long story short, we decided to write a movie about her being the only lesbian Jew, fluid, in a Christian Florida rehab, and we called it Story with Ruby. And I want to speak about a part of Ruby I was privileged enough to know very intimately, which was Ruby as a writer. Joe can attest because they had been working on it this year. And first of all, obviously, she was the funniest person in the entire world. And everything out of her mouth was like the most brilliant thing ever. I would be like, then what would happen? And then she'd say the craziest, most brilliant thing. I'd just be trying to type, trying to keep it all, everything, keep up with her. Some lines that really got me were, at one point, a character was praying, and Ruby was praying with her, and she asked Ruby if Jews believed in Jesus. And Ruby said, yeah, they believe he was around, like the way Amy Adams pops up in an Oscar-nominated film, but never wins. Just there with a ray of talent. Or when a character asked her how she was, and she said, well, I've been better, and I certainly have never been worse. Which I think we can all use today. The movie we wrote was about faith and hope and death and life. And in a lot of ways, it was about our friendship. It was about a person who doesn't, it was about a person who doesn't believe in themselves, but finds hope and strength and faith in God and the people around them, because that's what Ruby did for me, and obviously that's what Ruby did for all of us. And in these moments, I reread it, and it almost felt like this conversation with her in this time. And so, as not to gatekeep, I'll share some of it with you. There was a scene based on a true story of a boy who was in love with Ruby, as so often a boy is. And he was awkward and shy, but Ruby, sat with him anyway. And he says, she said, "You shouldn't like me. I have a habit of ruining people's lives, starting with 1995 and culminating today." And he says, "Well, I wish you could see what I see, which is a sunflower that's growing really tall, afraid of how tall, but is brave and keeps growing and makes everyone stand a little taller too. That's why as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to get a sunflower tattoo that says Ruby, and it'll remind me of how strong and brave you are and how much whoa, look at that, and here it comes, of how much I love you." To which Ruby says, "I am gay." "I'm so very gay." And he says, "Cool, but it's okay because so am I." And she says, "No, Vito, you're not." And he goes, "Got me, because I love you. Shoot." Throughout the movie, at first, Ruby wants to skip Hanukkah because she's depressed, and then she's trying to get out of rehab in time for Hanukkah. And it's a true story. The people in rehab ended up, like a friend she made there, ended up going to Walmart and buying her a plastic menorah, and all these Christians threw her a Hanukkah. And this is what Ruby says, written by Ruby, when they ask her what the holiday is and what it means. And she says, "It's not anyone's birthday. It's a celebration of lights. It's like after a battle or something, the Jews went into this major synagogue, church place, and wanted to light the candles, similar to this electric one bought at Walmart here. But unlike us, they were allowed to be around unsupervised flame. But there was only enough oil for what seemed like just one night, and everyone was like, 'Oh shit, this is nothing, we're fucked.' And they complained, as we've been known to do. That's an actual anti-Semitic trope that's founded in immense truth. But yeah, they were scared and unhappy, but they were like, let's practice some radical acceptance and just light it anyway and be grateful for what we do have. All our friends and family are dead, and we have like a candle." So they lit it, and yeah, that small amount of oil actually ended up burning for 8 whole nights. To which another character goes, "Well, Jesus was dead for 3 months." And Ruby says, "It did a lot with what it was given, and yeah, that's a miracle." Ruby's life was way too short, and her candle should have lasted a lot longer than it did, but it was strong, and it never gave up, and it was bright, and it lit everyone around her, and it did much more than the small amount of time it was given, and it was always her, it was always true to herself, and to me, that is a miracle. So I love you, Ruby. Everything has, and everything always will be all about you.
Someone's going to buy options on that. Gabe's going to come up and share some words.
Hi, I'm Gabe. I'm your confirmation that she wasn't entirely gay, I guess. I had the privilege of spending the majority of both my waking and unwaking moments over the past year and a half with Ruby. Something about mine and Ruby's relationship that remains very special to me is how many cards and notes we wrote to one another. Occasions, holidays, life events, we always wrote one another cards. I originally wrote a eulogy, and I hated it and threw it away. So I decided to write Ruby just another card instead. Hi, Lommel. I usually love writing you cards, but this one is hard for me, and I really want it to be right because you deserve that. I still remember and thankfully have the first cards that we gave one another. On our second date, I gave you a book that I thought you would love called My Last Supper, 50 Great Chefs and Their Final Meals, Portraits, Interviews, and Recipes. Unfortunately, ironic in hindsight. You were so appreciative of my bizarre little gift and the note that I wrote inside the cover and onto the next page. Your cute smile even came out, which was infectious, as it would be for me from then on. On one of our next couple dates, you brought me a wonderful Mexican cookbook with your own note on the inside, half of which was you apologizing to me for not being as good of a card writer as I was. You were wrong. Your lovely, witty, thoughtful, and deeply personal notes are now the most cherished of all my belongings, and I'm so blessed to have so many of them from you still. Ruby, you are so beautiful. Your ridiculously long eyelashes, plump lips, golden curly hair, sparkling ice blue eyes. I don't get to see any of those with my eyes anymore, but I do get to keep so much of what is beautiful in you with me forever. I get to hear your laugh in videos. I get to keep your stories and jokes. I get to smile when your mannerisms, quirks, eccentricities, and ways of speaking pop out from myself or our many mutual friends in unexpected moments. I get every memory of your smiles, your hugs, your generosity, your touch, your laugh, your handholds, your tears, your cuddles, and your infinite support. I get to live in our home where I have so many memories of you. Sometimes I still expect to walk into the kitchen at 2 a.m. and find you eating sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, and ribs over the sink. I get to keep every memory of you jumping around the house, rapping "They Not Like Us" at me for the 5th time that afternoon. The feeling of you holding on to me as you stand on my feet while we dance. The look on your face when a prime rib came out of the oven or a chicharron from the fryer. The twinkle in your eyes when Shohei Ohtani came up to bat. You would have loved Friday's game. And you saw me as clearly as anyone ever has. You bought me Pokemon cards for Valentine's Day. You threw me a Mongolian Khan-themed birthday party. You showed so much interest in anything I was passionate about, and you loved when anyone was passionate about anything, and you were always so you. I get to keep that all and so much more than that. I love you, Ruby. We told one another that less than a month after meeting, and I felt it every single day since, even when I was mad at you. I love how much we reminded one another of our love. I loved you on our best, most wonderful days, our most boring days, and I loved you when I was exacerbated and angry at you too. I've been talking a lot about that with our friends and families lately, about how lovable you are, how you had this magnetic energy that compelled those around you to just want to bundle you up and hold you, to take care of you and take your pain away and make you smile and laugh again. It wasn't always easy or even possible, but everyone wanted to try because you are so fucking easy to love. I used to tell you that when we would argue, and you would tell me that you felt difficult and unlovable. But I would say that being your boyfriend is not always easy, but loving you always is, and not just easy, but inevitable. I can say that you have unequivocally helped me to become a better man. You believed in me endlessly, convinced me that I'm the funniest person in the world after Allie, and inflated my ego in the kitchen as well. You helped me to become kinder, more patient, more thoughtful, and certainly more forgiving. You may not have realized it, but you taught me indescribable and unconscious lessons every day that have allowed me to deepen my relationships with my family and friends and become more confident and authentic in myself. You helped me to become stronger and more resilient, and I will try my best to honor your contribution to my life with the way that I live moving forward. I really want to make you proud. The amount of grief that I and your entire community are in is immeasurable. You would probably laugh at how many tears I've shed in the last 10 days, given that you probably never saw me cry once in our entire relationship. And then you would cry with me. Through this pain, the only thing that has really helped me is when I talk to you. I know you can hear it because you've given me the most beautiful signs already. I expect you'll hang around until at least the end of the World Series. My family's motto has become "Win for Rubes." We text it to each other. I hope everyone who loves you in this room today talks to you. I promise I'll do that forever. I hope you're comfortable and happy on this next part of your journey, and I hope that you can forgive all the times that I was imperfect for you. I will see you again one day. Love, Gabe.
Gabe, I'm going to crib a line from what you just said and have everyone fill in the blank. You said, being blank to you wasn't always easy. Fill in the blank. Everyone here was something to Ruby. But loving her was really easy. So many of the stories and many of the parts and experiences that Ruby had, the sneers, the laughs, the joys, the hurt, the heartache, the confusion, she brought the show here to 8831 about 3.5 years ago and showed up. And many of us have been blessed since then. We have a couple people to share a little bit about what it was like to have her join this community and have her, in some ways, as we heard, reground herself, find herself, and share herself. I'm going to call up Jamie and Micah to share a little bit.
Hi, my name is Jamie. Here we say grateful member of this community, but today I'm a grateful friend of Ruby. I'm a grateful friend, I'm a sad friend, I'm a confused friend of Ruby. Unfortunately, in this community, loss of close friends isn't necessarily foreign, but Ruby was never ever supposed to be one of those friends. Today I stand here riddled with the whys and the hows. I've had to stop myself and think about Ruby, and if it were Ruby and I asking each other these questions, I would probably say to her that we'll never know, that we can be together in the feelings and know that one day we'll feel better than we do right now. And maybe that faith is enough to get us through today. Trying to sum up our friendship feels like an impractical task. As all of you know, Ruby is impossible to fit into a box or describe. I can say, though, that having Ruby in my life was one of the most surprising gifts I've ever received from this place. I was working as a tech the day she got here, and there was an instant draw to adopt her into my orbit. The ups and downs were a welcomed aspect of our friendship because through them, I learned the complex and beautiful nature of being human, of loving someone because of who they were at their core, and accepting the same kind of love in return. We grew together and learned together. We fought and came back to one another. We were curious together and angry together, and above all, we understood together. We understood things that were maybe too difficult to talk about, or that we felt safe enough to talk about, which was even more special. Ruby was a friend that meant more to me than maybe she ever knew. And the most amazing thing to think about is how she was that to so many other people as well. Her memory is a blessing and will forever continue to be for all those that knew her. She had an uncanny ability to see those who never felt seen and hear those whose words were often lost amongst the crowd. Our bond was one of a sea that she shared with so many others, but in my life, it's one I will forever think about as proof that I was able to have a complicated and intricate, overwhelmingly special friendship with a woman that I can only pray knows how exceptional she really was.
I wasn't originally planning on saying anything, but I will say that when Ruby first came into my life, she frustrated me to no end. I was placed in the unenviable position of trying to contain her, and that just doesn't happen. At some point in time, I'm sure Ruby decided that I was going to be one of her people, and, well, the rest is history. I gained one of the most important people in my life, somebody that is just completely irreplaceable. And I love you, and I'm going to miss you, Ruby, so much.
Kyle.
You know how much I love your daughter. We took a huge risk when we moved in together when we left Beit Shuva. She drove me crazy living with her. Mark had to come intervene sometimes because we got into so many tussles. But I'm so grateful that I've become part of this family, especially with Zoe and you taking me in as one of your own. Zoe, you know I'm always here for you. You're my best friend. And I'm always going to be a part of your life, no matter what. And it's the one where we always say to each other, always. Ruby, thank you for introducing me to your family and for letting me into your life. I love you and I miss you so much.
Max is going to come up.
This is a hard one. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Max Truen, an alumni and grateful member of this community. This is really hard to accept. Losing Ruby feels impossible to put into words. Her passing was sudden, completely unexpected, and a fucking tragedy. Ruby was 30 years old with so much life, laughter, and love still ahead of her. It doesn't feel real. She wasn't just my friend, she was family. I met Ruby in this room in 2021, right here at Beit Teshuvah. I was 2 days sober. I didn't know anybody. I was lost, scared, trying to figure out this life. And then came Ruby. The first time we met was over lunch. Of course it was over food. She asked, "Where are you from?" I said, originally New York, but I live in Miami. She looked at me, grinned, and laughed, and said, "Perfect." A Jew who knows the good things in life. That was Ruby. Quick, funny, confident, full of heart, and from that moment, we fell in love. We spent so much time together. We ordered sushi, pizza, pastrami. We honestly ate our way through rehab. Luckily, I worked in the kitchen. Thank you to Beit Teshuvah for giving me a key, and we would make grilled cheese and some other things in the kitchen without anybody knowing. We had an unspoken rule. When one of us would order food, we had this rule to call each other to share, and we always did. Some people worked their feelings through rehab with therapies and DBT and CBT, but Ruby and I worked it with Postmates and Uber Eats, and sometimes Goldbelly. Thank you, Ruby. Beit Teshuvah for us was more than just rehab. It was a life break, a pause button of the chaos and guilt and pain that we had built up over the years. It had given us the ability to have space and breathe again, to find ourselves, to laugh again. Ruby and I made the best of it. We used to joke that this didn't even feel like rehab sometimes, but more like a Mexican resort. Just a little weird and a life vacation with therapies, curfews, and of course, the bar was closed. Even in the darkest times, Ruby brought light into our lives. She was raw, she was real, and she was fucking hilarious. She could make you laugh when you wanted to cry, and cry when you least expected it. She had that rare gift of making every person in the room feel loved, every person feel seen. She was a total yenta, just like me. Always talking, connecting, and somehow knowing everyone's business in the most loving way possible. I'll never forget, I was here for about 3 weeks, and it was my son's second birthday, Austin. It happened, I was right here at Beit Teshuvah, and I didn't have $1 to my name. Coming from the corporate world, making all this money, I didn't have $1. And I felt awful I couldn't call him or buy him a gift. But in true Ruby Frankel fashion, she didn't even blink an eye. She sat with me at work while she was working the front desk, pulled up her Amazon account, and picked out 100 toys. Ordered cars and Legos, this, that, and the other. And I said, "Ruby, I need to pay you back." She said, "Absolutely not." That's who Ruby was, a mensch. She was generous, thoughtful, and full of life. That same year, Ruby invited me to her family's home for Thanksgiving, where I fell in love with Cheryl, Mark, Zoe, Lala. You welcomed me into your home like your own son. When my family wasn't speaking to me, you guys were there for me. Ruby loved you all so much. She talked about each and every one of you and was so grateful that I was her brother. She always, every time I called, I asked about Zoe, and she constantly would tell me, "I'm so proud of Zoe," and she loved you, Zoe, so much. Ruby just wasn't part of Beit Teshuvah, but she was Beit Teshuvah. She came here to heal and then came back to help others heal too. Both as an alumni and a staff member, she gave back to the place that gave her her life back. That was Ruby. She always gave more than she took. After Beit Teshuvah, we stayed close. We celebrated milestones, helped each other through hard times, and always stayed connected. We visited in Miami, talked about food constantly. She would send me videos, calls, and texts, and there were nights we were on the phone with Meredith, my wife, and Ruby, and we'd have an ongoing debate about the most random things, like whether LA, Miami, or New York had better pastrami. For the record, Ruby was right. There's some pretty tasty pastrami in the city. Every single call ended the same way. She'd say, "Max, I seriously love you." And I would say right back, "Ruby, I seriously love you too." That was our thing. We were both so proud of each other that we stayed sober. We used to say, we fucking did it. We're not like the norm. It's our quiet reminder that we made through some of the dark times together. Our last conversation was right before Rosh Hashanah. She asked about my two boys, Austin and Asher, and my wife, Meredith. And she said, when are you coming to LA? We need some Macs. She said, you need to get out here. I miss you. My family misses you. I told her soon. Unfortunately, that soon never happened. And that breaks my heart, and I'll never forget it. Ruby was brilliant, creative, and brave. A talented writer, actress, and graduate of NYU Tisch. And most recently a therapist. She had just earned her master's degree in clinical psychology. I was so proud of Ruby. She did it. She told me from the day I met her that she's going to be a therapist one day, and she did it. That was Ruby, always learning, always helping, and always growing. She had a heart of gold that filled a room and a light that will never go out. She can make you feel special just by being in the room. As a Beit Teshuvah community, we will show up for Cheryl, for Mark and Zoe, and her whole family. We will hold them close and carry Ruby's memory, and may her memory be a blessing. Ruby, you were my sister. Meredith, the boys, and I are absolutely devastated. My boys will always know about Dad's friend Ruby from LA, and the one big laugh, the big heart, the huge appetite, and the love that never ran out. Thank you for being my person in the hardest time of my life. I love you forever, and Ruby, I seriously love you forever.
All right. Thank you, Max, Jamie, Micah, Kyle. There's many others in this community and in this room that could speak and share and share and share some more. There'll be time for that later. We have a tradition in this room and in this community because we often say the Mourner's Kaddish. We say it weekly, sometimes more than weekly, but we don't say it alone. So we're going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish together. Cantor Nate will lead us. The tradition is to stand and to make sure no one's standing alone. So we'll stand with Cheryl and Mark, Zoe, Ruby's friends from all over the country, from when they were little and when they were older, her friends from this community, friends online, and we'll share.
Yitkadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'yizman kari v'imru. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olomei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei dekudsha, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Yehei shlam araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. May God, who brings peace to the heavens, bring a little peace to us here in the mortal realm.
You can sit. So I started by talking about the book of Ecclesiastes, the book of Kohelet, which I said was quite fitting. It was written this time of year, or it's read this time of year. It's written with incredible insight into the world, into people, into the nature of life. It leaves the reader often with many more questions than answers. But it also leaves the writer with a lot of uncertainty and, in some ways, a lot of, if you read it, there's a certain sassiness, there's a certain sneer, certain contempt that the uncertainty, that life doesn't matter, or that there's not meaning in things, and it's never fully resolved. There's a tension that lives throughout the book. And the writer makes it very much, there's a lot of I's in Kohelet. Makes it about himself. But he's blind that in sharing his insights and his sneers, also his celebrations and joy and his ability to love, and it's a gift to everyone who reads it. And he, as you read it, seems to be in a great deal of pain towards the end of his life. But his legacy is one that leaves us questioning, recognizing that we put our full selves into things with passion, that life is available to be lived to its fullest, that it may result in heartache, it will certainly result in pain and suffering, and yet we have a choice to make in how we respond to it. And I think Ruby gave all of us that in the ways that we experienced her, and ways that we were able to experience her today, in being able to put the pieces of Ruby that we know together, along with the stories that so many friends, family, and others shared. And we'll walk away from today with a broken heart. But we'll also walk away feeling loved and seen by someone who was really special, who didn't always know it, but learned how to share that with others. I want to say a couple thank yous as we wrap. There'll be some refreshments on this side of the room. There's a bathroom over there if you need it. There'll be some more photos and videos that'll be scrolling on the screens thanks to Tyler and Jesse. We have some baked goods that were generously offered by Mel and Baked Teshuva. If you notice on the little program, there's a couple QR codes. There's one that's put together by the mortuary if people want to post any comments and share some memories that the family and others will be able to hold on to. There's also a QR code that the family encouraged us to put on that'll support Beit Tshuva and support the space like this and the people like this and the opportunities like this to gather together when people are in pain, to be a space where people can find themselves, to share all of themselves. And we can do that in Ruby's memory. We can also wrap up thinking of her wit, thinking of her passion, thinking of her love, and thinking of her waiting for when the next drama is going to show up. So we'll gather, we'll schmooze. Hopefully there'll be no fights. We can catch up and see and imagine that she truly is relishing in a room with so many different people that she's allowed to interconnect. Plenty of stories and gossip, I'm sure, will come out of that, allowing people to connect and continue to love her. Thank you. You can wrap. Thanks.